In this century, great strides have been made toward the goal of subverting our republic into a democracy. The foremost tactic of the subverters is subversion of language. By calling America a democracy until people thoughtlessly accept and use the term, the totalitarians have obscured the real meaning of our principles of government. That is a summary of my report on a constitutional republic, not a democracy.
Welcome back to Notify America. We have multiple pressing stories to get to, stories that corporate media doesn't want to touch. But before we get started, thank you for liking and sharing these videos. It really helps me out. And if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to do so to continue receiving these daily updates. A new article just out of NBC News shows just how far these anti-Trump activists will go to stop Trump from engaging in what they call dictatorial behavior. Inside this article, they expose a network of people and groups who are working behind the scenes, they say, to thwart a future Trump presidency. I don't know if they even realized that they were exposing all of this, but in their language in the article, that's what ended up happening. They say preparing plans, this group is, for how to deal with a future Trump administration. It sounds very similar to what Trump supporters would call the deep state, doesn't it? Here's what they write. Bracing for Trump's potential return, a loose-knit network of public interest groups and lawmakers is quietly devising plans to try to foil any efforts to expand presidential power, which could include pressuring the military to cater to his political needs. Those taking part in the effort told NBC News they are studying Trump's past actions and 2024 policy positions so that they will be ready if he wins in November. That involves preparing to take legal action and send letters to Trump appointees spelling out consequences they'd face if they undermine constitutional norms. And they wonder why Trump supporters are suspicious that there's this shadowy group working behind the scenes to take him out. They go on and say this: we're already starting to put together a team to think through the most damaging types of things that he, Trump, might do so that we're ready to bring lawsuits if we have to, said the director of the Institution for Constitutional Advocacy and Protection at Georgetown Law. Part of the aim is to identify like-minded organizations and create a coalition to challenge Trump from day one. Those taking part in the discussion said. Other participants include Democracy Forward, an organization that took the Trump administration to court more than 100 times during his administration, and Protect Democracy, an anti-authoritarian group. We believe this is an existential moment for American democracy, and it's incumbent on everybody to do their part. Really? Is it really? Think about this. How much money and manpower are they putting into stopping Donald Trump? They're scared. Here's Nancy Pelosi the other day. Listen to what she had to say about the thought of Trump winning in November.
Individual basis, every single piece that you laid out there pulls quite well. You lay out what the former president has said he wants to do in terms of repealing Obamacare, in terms of being proud of Roe versus Wade being struck down, in terms of more tax cuts along the lines of what you saw in 2017. That also polls much better for Democrats than it would for him. And yet, this is a neck-and-neck race, and no one feels very comfortable on the Democratic side of things that Donald Trump isn't going to be the next president.
Well, I don't think that nobody feels. I think many of us know that it is impossible for him to be the president again with what he is proposing. Well, because when you're talking about what he's talking about now is more tax cuts for corporate America.
Now, why are they so scared? Well, they acted like this against Donald Trump through his first term, but this time he knows what he's doing. He doesn't have to worry about popular opinion so much, worry about what the news is saying. So yeah, if you put someone through what they put Trump through between 2016 to today, they should be scared. There's a whole ton of topics I'm sure he wants to get to the bottom of. In another story, the FAA's Diversity Push includes a focus on hiring people with severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities. That's the headline out of Fox News this morning, as the push for DEI gets more and more crazy each day, saying FAA says people with severe disabilities are most underrepresented segment of federal workforce. The Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, is actively recruiting workers who suffer severe intellectual disabilities, psychiatric problems, and other mental and physical conditions under a diversity and inclusion hiring initiative spelled out on the agency's website. The initiative is part of the FAA's Diversity and Inclusion Hiring Plan, which says diversity is integral to achieving the FAA's mission of ensuring safe and efficient travel across our nation and beyond. Look, it's good to hire people with disabilities if you can help give them a job that they can do. That's great. If it doesn't hurt your bottom line, if it helps them out, that's awesome. But then There's some industries where safety's involved, safety of not just the workers, but the public at large, such as the transportation industry. What the hell is happening to this country, folks? Listen to what this guy says. Scott Kirby, the CEO of United Airlines, did an interview with Axios where he wanted to emphasize that DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is what guides racial and gender quotas, right? Well, he says DEI is now one of the key considerations that United Airlines considers when hiring new pilots. Pilots. This isn't a Babylon Bee headline. This is real, folks. Here's a quote from his interview, which we can't show because it's part of an HBO special, copyright and all, but here's his quote. We've committed 50% of all classes will be women or people of color. Today, only 19% of pilots today are women or people of color. And by the way, from all the data that I've seen, that's the highest number from any of the airlines in the country. This is getting out of control. Do you want your pilot to be hired solely based off their race or gender, or do you want to expect the person flying the plane is the best pilot they can find, regardless of color or gender? But that's not what they're doing. They're hiring to meet quotas here, which, to be honest, I thought was illegal. It's so odd that nobody brings a lawsuit about these DEI hiring practices. That's something that you'd see left-wing groups, by the way, being very good at. They have armies of these legal groups, nonprofits and think tanks and such, that bring lawsuits challenging anything they don't like. We saw it all through the Trump administration. We just looked at a group of them doing the same thing in the first segment against Trump. But there's nothing like that on the other side, it seems like. You'd think if a case like this was brought in front of the Supreme Court, they'd find hiring specifically for race and gender is illegal. At least I'd hope they would. America's supposed to be a meritocratic system, right? The best person wins. The most qualified person wins. It doesn't matter if they're black, white, brown, or blue for that matter. In another story, COVID strain JN1 could trigger a global heart failure pandemic. That's the warning. If you're watching on YouTube, by the way, that last segment, an important segment we can't show on this platform per their terms of service. In another story, an unfortunate story, 2 U.S. Navy SEALs have gone missing off the coast of Somalia in the Gulf of Aden. The missing SEALs fell into the water during a nighttime boarding mission on Thursday. According to the AP, which, by the way, prints whatever the government tells them to, they wrote this. A U.S. official who spoke on the condition of anonymity said the SEALs were on an interdiction mission when one of them fell off a ship after high waves hit the vessel, prompting another SEAL to go after him and attempt a rescue. Search and rescue operations have been underway, and the New York Times says military officials have started the process of notifying the families of the commandos involved in the episode. A new Gallup poll shows Americans identifying as Democrats has hit a record low. Just 27% of Americans now self-identify as Democrats, the smallest figure in the party's history, according to the survey. Independents, meanwhile, take the cake with 43% of Americans identifying as such, which isn't surprising. I feel like there's been this shift recently, almost like it's no longer popular to say you're a Democrat. It used to be 5 years ago, you wouldn't even dare say that you're a Republican. Now, I still feel like most people aren't either Republican or Democrat, but the stranglehold that the Democratic establishment had over popular culture, I feel like is beginning to break, at least a bit. Let me know what you think. All right, that wraps up this episode. Like, subscribe. We'll see you next time.